Thanks for joining us for another segment of Mayes County Master Gardener video blogs. Today we're being joined by Mike Rose, the educator at the Mayes County Extension Office. Mike's going to talk to us about soil testing. Mike's office is located at the Mayes County Fairgrounds at 2200 Northeast 1st Street in Pryor. Okay, Mike, take it away and teach us all about soil testing. Mike, thanks for joining us today. So I have a couple of questions about soil testing. First, when is the best time to have your soil tested?
Well, Kathy, you can do it most any time during the year and get good results. My favorite time to get a soil test, though, is in the fall. And that's primarily because it gives you time then to get the test results. And if you need to make some amendments to adjust the pH, you can do that and give it a little bit of time to react with the soil before you plant again that following spring. It's probably more important that you do your soil tests consistently during the time of the year. And what I mean by that is if you do them in the spring, just do them in the spring every year or every third year like we recommend. That's probably more important than actually what time of the year. With you using a garden, it really isn't as critical because you amend the soil and you can till in the lime or sulfur or whatever you're using to change the soil pH. So it's less critical with a garden than it would be with a pasture or a field.
Okay, so if they wanted to have their soil tested now before planting, say, their summer garden, it's not too late, right?
No, ma'am, it's not too late at all. I would want to do it fairly soon, but you can certainly get that test or come and borrow a soil probe from us and pull a sample, or we can tell you more of how to collect the sample. It typically takes 2 weeks or 10 working days to get the results back. Sometimes we can get that back a little bit sooner, but yes, they could still get a soil test done now and get you good information to assist them with planning and preparing their garden.
So if we're talking about a small home garden, how would you collect the soil for that?
Well, one of the easiest methods to collect a soil test is to come and borrow a soil probe from us. We loan these out to individuals to use to collect a soil sample. And you just take this randomly through your garden and take 15 to 20 plugs at a 6-inch soil depth. These are marked. This one's marked right here at a 6-inch soil depth. And you'd take those plugs randomly in that area, tap those plugs into a clean bucket, mix those up when you got to 15 or 20. Make sure the bucket's clean, like I mentioned, because you don't want any residue from fertilizer in it. And then you'd fill up a soil bag that you'd bring back to us and get a soil test ran. If it's really, really dry soil, we have these, what they call sweatless soil probes, and it's simply a ship auger's bit that's attached to a cordless drill, and you can use this to collect the sample. We actually have a bucket that has a hole in the bottom as well. And finally, if it's too much trouble or you live quite a ways off, you can still collect those samples using a garden spade. In a garden, since it's typically tilled and more friable soil, it's looser and easier to collect. You could go ahead and collect a sample, those 15 or 20 plugs using garden spade at that 6-inch soil depth. So a lot of different ways, but the soil probe is the easiest method.
Okay, great. So, is there anyone, because I know I've had my soil tested here, and I get the results back and I'm not really sure about what's happening. So is there someone here at OSU Extension to help decipher those results when they come back in?
Sure, that makes a good point. We'll mail those samples to Stillwater. They'll run the analysis there on campus at the soils lab, and then they post that information back and we print that off. I'll put a recommendation on that and mail those samples back to you. But as you said, sometimes it's useful to have, you may have a few questions that you want to know. Feel free to contact me and I can walk them through the process of what each of those values mean and maybe how they might want to go about addressing those nutrient deficiencies in their garden.
Okay, great. Okay, so my last question is, what is the cost for a soil sample?
A routine soil analysis, which is that one bag that you bring in, and we need it to be full. So a quart bag would be great. If you don't get a soil bag, if we give you a soil bag, fill it completely full. That one bag will cost you $10 for a routine analysis, and that'll give you soil pH, so whether or not you need to, and typically we have acidic soils, so whether or not you need to lime most frequently, and it also gives you the three major nutrients: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Once again, that routine test is $10. If you want to add secondary nutrients, that's another $4. If you want to add micronutrients, that's an additional $4. And if you wanted organic matter tested, that would be $8. So there's a lot of different options. Most people go with the routine soil test, and that would be $10.
Okay, Mike, thanks so much. And by the way, Mike is the grand poobah here at Mayes County Master Gardener. He's our educator and is the one who puts together the Master Gardener classes that we have every couple of years. So, Mike, thanks so much for joining us, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you again later in the year.
Sure, thank you.
As promised, we'll try to give you a few tips and tricks for the home garden at the end of each segment. One thing I've learned the hard way is to always keep a journal. Mine isn't nearly this fancy. It's actually just a spiral notebook, but I write down all of the different cultivars of the things that I'm planting, and that way, if I really love them, I know what to purchase the next year, and if they don't do well in my garden, then I know not to buy them again. It's also helpful to know when you planted and when you picked, because that way, if you're on a time frame, you'll know not to plant something that is going to take longer to mature than the time you have available. I know we're all anxious to get those bedding plants in the ground because who doesn't want fresh tomatoes on the 4th of July? But know that the last freeze can be as late as April 15th. So if you're going to put them in the ground now, you need to watch the weather, and if it's going to freeze or frost, cover your plants in the evening and don't forget to uncover them the next morning. Okay, that's it for this segment. We'll see you next week when we talk about selecting your bedding plants and where around Pryor is a good place to do that. We'll see you then.